Hey everyone, welcome to Uncut with Andy Diamond. I am Andy, and we are here today with one of my best friends from college, Greg Martin. We went to the University of Florida together in the 90s. Go Gators. Greg has a super exciting / slightly traumatizing story to share with us today that I'm sure a lot of you have either experienced or maybe experienced a little touch of this. Because when Ancestry.com and a lot of the at-home genetic tests came out, I'm sure a lot of people were excited, nervous, and slightly shaking in their boots. And maybe people had a little bit of a oh shit moment. Anyway, hi, Greg.
Thanks, Savannah. Thanks for having me.
So I'm so excited that you and your beautiful fiance came in from Virginia to chat with me today. And let's just dig into it. Let's just talk about your story. I'm going to lead off because you are coming to visit here in Florida. I'm in Florida. Obviously, you're in Virginia. And on your way driving down here, you said, I'm stopping at my brother's and then I will be at your house. And I said, I'm sorry, what the hell are you talking about? We've known each other since we were 19. And to my knowledge, you have no siblings.
Okay.
So we'll take it from there.
Okay. So, yes, as long as you've known me, I was an only child. I was an only child. And it happened just like that. I said, I'm coming down to Florida. I'm going to go hang out with my brother. And you're like, wait, what?
I'm sorry, what?
And I said, I didn't tell you that. and you're like, no. And I said, whoa, I got a story to tell you. So when I finally got down here, Andy and I sat on the beach and I said, all right, so here's where it all began. So why don't I start there? About 10 years ago, my ex-wife decided to trace her lineage doing Ancestry and had started the wheels turning to look into her past and, traced her roots back to Italy. And then she wanted to complete my family tree, because we were married at the time, complete our family tree. And so she started asking my mom about, my background. And so she started the conversation with my mom. And there were kind of whisperings and, well, I talked to your mom today. And all of a sudden, my ex, I remember I was standing in the kitchen. My ex came in and she said, so I was talking to your mom today, and have you ever noticed you don't look like your dad? And I was like, oh boy, here we go. Yep, Greg's adopted. And I just assumed, I was like, well, whatever. I'm adopted.
No, we were born in the 70s, so let's preface with all of this.
Yeah, and you just assume you came from where you came from. And so when she said that, I said, well, okay, I'm adopted. Well, I don't look like my dad, and I've heard that my whole life. And my dad is 6'2", I'm not 6'2". And at the time, it didn't faze me. I just said, whatever.
He's my dad.
My dad's my dad. He played baseball with me in the side yard. He took me hunting and fishing. That's my dad. And so anyway.
Blood doesn't make him your dad. He's your dad.
Exactly. He's the only dad I've ever known. He's the only dad I'll ever have. So that's where it was at. So she said, well, I don't know. I was talking to your mom, and she said that they were having fertility issues. And I said, okay.
When they were trying to get pregnant back in the 70s.
So, we were having fertility issues. And so they had seen a fertility doctor. And she said, well, I don't know, but I looked up the fertility doctor at the university. And if I had to guess, I'd say he was your father. Oh, and by the way, you're Jewish. And I was like, okay, great. I'm adopted. I'm Jewish, whatever it is. Still did not know. It would become a lot clearer later on. Okay.
And you just kind of let it drop at that point.
I let it drop because I just didn't care. I had no desire to figure it out. A lot of people, it'd be the other way around. They'd be like, wait a minute, stop the music. What is going on? Like, what do you mean? And people don't believe me. I just said, I don't care. Like, I don't care. So I let it ride, and I let it ride for about 10 years. Okay.
That in and of itself is mind-blowing to me, because I would have been like, what the hell?
The only thing in the back of my mind was, one, I was Jewish, which I'm not I don't practice a certain religion or anything. I'm more spiritual than anything. So that wasn't a concern to me. But in the back of my mind, I was like, I just kind of joked. And I was like, I'm Jewish. I have a bit of a hair problem back here. So,
Is that a Jewish thing?
No, but
my dad was Jewish. He was bald.
I don't know. When I look in the mirror, I see a yarmulke. So anyway, so in the back of my mind, I just thought, okay, I'm Jewish. And so time is going on. Again, don't care. I'm also getting older. Okay, so I'm getting older. You know your aches and pains. I know my aches and pains. So there was a bit of me that was like starting to think, well, every time you go to the doctor, well, tell me about your family history.
I don't know.
And I was like, well, I'm not positive, And so I started thinking, well, geez, it'd be nice to know if I had a family history other than my mom's side, family history of any sort of issues. Am I going to keel over tomorrow? Do I have this? And, so that was starting to weigh a little bit more in my mind. So fast forward, the ex-wife has left the game, and enter Shelly, my lovely fiance. So Shelly and I don't have any secrets. So we started talking, and I told her this whole story, and she joked along. She went along, and with my whole Jewish thing, and she said, "So don't you want to kind of find out? Don't you want to?" And I said, "Not really." She didn't pressure me or anything, and it just every year was kind of like, maybe you should do Ancestry. And I said, I don't have time. It's expensive. I don't want to do it. So
you did have time, and it's not expensive.
Okay.
Continue.
So a couple 2-3 years ago, it was Christmas time, and Ancestry was on sale. And Sauce said, my fiance, I refer to her, my pet name is Sauce.
Gotcha.
So, so I said, Sauce, I think I'm going to do it. And she's like, it's on sale. It's like $59. And I said, $59, I can do that. Yeah, $59. So did the test. Okay. Did the test, sent it off. Anybody who's done it knows that you do your thing and it goes away for, a month.
You're just spitting in a little thing, by the way. When you say do your thing, there's no weirdness.
Right. It's easy. It's an easy process. But
right.
You package it up, you send it to the company, and, hey, we'll be in touch. So all of a sudden, I get my results. And we were busy at the time. We had a lot of things going on. So here come my results. I think I got an email. And that night we sat down, and it was kind of the beginning of the rest of my life. Okay. So we sat down, you open up your email, and we're sitting on the couch in the sunroom looking at the results, and we're just scratching our heads. We're like, what is this? And I'm looking at like all these names, and she's like, do you know who those names are? And I said, no. And I know my mom's side of the family, so, typical family names.
And I'm going to pause you for a second. Your mom has since passed away.
Yes, my mom has passed away.
You can't ask her questions.
You're right. I can't ask questions. So I know my mom's family names, and they're Eastern European. So, this name, Boskis, and da-da-da. So they were all familiar to me. And it's like, okay, I know them, people that have done Ancestry. Okay. All the rest of the names are all different. And I can't go into the names, but all the names are different, and nothing is really adding up. And I'm looking at Shelly, and I'm going, I don't get this. And she's like, I don't get it either. So then we go to the ethnic breakdown, okay? We go to the ethnic breakdown, and it shows you a little map. And there's my mom's.
It's really cool.
There's my mom's side. It's all like lit up Eastern European, Lithuania, Ukraine. And that's all lit up. And then all of a sudden, a big spot of Spain is lit up. And we look at the actual breakdown. All of a sudden it says like 38% Eastern European and 39% Spanish. It's like, Spanish? And then we scroll down, and at the absolute bottom, it says 1% Jewish. And we're like, what is this? Have no clue. It's about 11 o'clock at night. Okay. It's about 11 o'clock at night. We had gone over it. We're looking at it. None of it is making sense. We don't know if it's a mistake. We don't know we have no clue what this means. All right. Time to go to bed. Again, this is a nice...
Again, how you just went to bed, I'd have been up for the next 48 hours, but okay.
Knowing me, I would think the same, but it was like, hey, I got to work tomorrow. So just tabled it and woke up the next morning, and it's like, look at the thing, and it's like, I have no idea. Don't know what it means. Fast forward again about a week. It's Saturday morning. We're waking up, we're making coffee, and I open my email. And I look at my email, and it says CR. And I said, Sauce, CR emailed me. She's like, what's it say? I was like, I don't know. So I start reading it, and this is from what will be my brother. Okay? My brother.
Again.
Mind blown, right? Okay. I don't know that. This is an email from CR, which is one of the names.
In the breakdown.
In the breakdown. And we're using abbreviations to protect the innocent.
Gotcha.
So I got an email from CR. So she brings the coffee over. We sit down on the couch, and it's like, hey, just wanted to let you know, welcome, everybody in the group is really cool, this, that, and the other thing. And we're reading this, and he keeps referring to dibblings. And it's like, is that sibling? Siblings? Did he misspell it? And it's like, no, he said it again here. And it's like, everybody's really cool. And, I found out, and, all these weird kind of vague, I found out, you're the newest, you're the oldest, all that. And it's like, okay, I don't know what's going on here, but something.
Can we please get on a phone call?
Something is a little bit bigger than Greg's adopted.
Right.
Okay. So read the email. I don't even remember if I responded at that. I guess I responded. No, I responded the next day after I had a chance to think about it.
Okay.
After I had a chance to think about it, and I was piecing together everything that my ex had said about fertility doctor, and I remember a couple names. Again, we're protecting the innocent. So I remember a couple of names, and I composed an email, and I said, hey, thanks for reaching out.
WTF.
Yeah. I was like, so let me get this straight. And I said, I'm starting to put a picture together in my head of what this is, and let me know if I'm right or wrong. So he emails me back, and he's like, yeah, so that's exactly what it is.
Tell us what it is.
So what it was, my parents were having fertility issues.
Again, mid-70s.
Mid-70s. My parents were having fertility issues and went to a fertility specialist at a major university. We're just going to leave it at that. Major university.
Major university.
And seeking treatment. So they had gone down the route, and keep in mind, there's
no internet, there's no Google.
There's no internet, there's no Google.
And you just believe what your doctors tell you.
Yes, you believe what your doctors tell you, and you're receiving treatments, okay? And again, I can't, at this point, I had not spoken to my dad. I didn't say, hey, what's the deal?
You didn't call him up and say, Dad, I just took, no.
No.
Okay.
Okay, so I hadn't spoken to my dad. My mom has passed, so I don't have any information there. All I have is that somehow I'm tied to a fertility clinic, and I'm, might be Jewish. So
and Spanish somehow.
Yeah,
as well.
and Spanish now. Okay. So it turns out my parents were seeking fertility treatment, went to the doctor
at this major Florida university.
At this major university. So one of the standing quotes in my head was a certain doctor, and we'll just say Dr. D. Okay. So I remember hearing the name Dr. D.
As a kid? You remember hearing this name when you were a kid?
No, this was my mom, a conversation with my mom, which my mom was kind of skirting the issue at the time.
Okay.
Because I think she wanted to tell me.
Okay.
And I think I was kind of getting a whiff of something, and I was like, oh, I don't want to know. I don't want to know.
I'll put my head in a hole, and then nothing is happening.
I'll just be under here. Nobody can find me. So my mom had said something, and I really just probably changed the subject, and it was like, okay, let's eat dinner. And so I remember the name Dr. D, and the quote was, I remember going in and walking down the halls, and Dr. D came running down the hall and saying, oh, Susie, I'm so excited. And he gave me a big hug, and he was so excited to share the news that I was finally pregnant. Okay. So that was a soundbite, and I remembered that. So here's this Dr. D. Okay. And so the story is they were seeking treatment. Dr. D is the fertility doctor. And then underneath the fertility doctor was his med students. His med students were donors, eating popcorn here. His med students were donors that were helping helping families have
Babies.
families. Okay?
Did you guys just catch that?
Okay.
Spell it out here.
In short, this was not what we know today as fertility treatments or whatever.
No.
This was essentially
Illegal.
probably illegal, probably not explained, and we can retouch on that, later in the show. It was not where you went and picked out your designer baby. I want him to be from this college. I want blonde hair, blue eyes. I want a redhead. This was more, okay, we want to have a baby.
Or I'm taking sperm from the husband
Yes.
and putting it into the wife.
Yes. So yeah, it wasn't so much in vitro. It was pretty barbaric isn't the term. It was pretty simple. Like essentially, Mrs. Martin is in room 6. Med student, I need you to come back in 5 minutes. Okay. It was.
Are you guys getting that?
It was about that simple.
But your dad, to your knowledge, thought that his donation
Yes.
was what was being implanted into your mom.
Yes, he knew, and at this point, the conversation, we've had conversations about this, and it was, I was one of the donors. Okay, so
Your dad thought he was one of the
Yes.
donors. And from what you and I have talked about, the young med student's sperm was helping his sperm to swim along.
Yes.
And again, it's 70s, so you're just like, oh, okay.
yeah, essentially, okay, we're building a swim team here. So we've got the strong swimmers and we got the weak swimmers.
And the strong one's just going to stay in the back and push
so
the weak one.
maybe the two will be like, neck and neck, and then all of a sudden the weak one or the strong one will push the weak one, and dad's wins. Either way, there were multiple donors, but in general, it was the med students doing all the work. So,
The work.
doing the work.
Okay.
So I am a product. I'm a product of one of the med students.
Of an underground infertility clinic at a major university that there's no record of.
Yes. Again, the plot kind of thickens there.
Yes.
Okay. So, so now I've established this. Okay. I now know that was my biological father. Okay. Still don't know a lot of names or details.
This med student at this university.
Okay. So here's where the whole story is funny. The whole thing is kind of hilarious.
I'm glad that you found humor in this because
So-
anybody else would probably go crazy.
Right.
But
So here's where, this is a funny little bit. So I've talked to my brother. I know the story. I think I've got it.
so all of the dibblings, we're going to dive into the dibblings in a second, but all of the dibblings, these donor siblings, their parents all had the same fertility issues, and they were all going to this clinic and receiving what they thought was legitimate fertility treatment.
Fertility treatments, and again, later on the show, we can address that. It was treatments, whether that's vitamins, whether that's techniques, whether that's get more sleep, whether that's, we don't know. It was treatments, and everybody had a different experience, come to find out. So just say, certain fathers, we absolutely knew that they couldn't have kids. Well, they know that we're using donors.
Okay.
There were others that it was established that it was like, we weren't quite sure what was going on. Like, you think you're taking vitamins and you're taking med student. So.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So it's very complicated. Anyway. So
at this point, how many donor siblings have you found? Well, I should say at that point.
It sounds great.
At that point, as soon as you talk to CR, how many were in the circle?
I believe 10 or 11. And this is crazy. I don't even know how many brothers or sisters I have.
So how many do you know of now?
I still don't know. I think it's like 12 or 13. You lose track. So, okay. So I now have the general idea. I'm just barely getting the names figured out. And again, we'll keep that a secret. So I get that. I get another email from CR, my brother. And again, it's late. I have to go to work in the morning. I got all this information at like 11 o'clock at night. Okay. Names, dates, a lot of details. So I call Shelly. Shelly and I hadn't been living together at the time. So I called her and I was like, hey, got another email from CR. It's the names, this, that, and the other thing. I'm going to bed. So I wake up.
God, not a woman.
So I wake, not a woman. Tried to be a woman, didn't work out. So I wake up the next morning, and luckily I didn't have to go to work. I had plans to go to work, and my whole schedule got canceled. So I'm working on my house at the time. I'm renovating my house. So when I don't work, I work. So I am off to Walmart. I got to go grab some spray paint. I send everything that CR sent to me, and I send it to Shelly. And I was like, hey, he sent me all this stuff. I'm going to Walmart.
Be an FBI agent.
I'm going to
me.
Walmart. I'm working on the half bath. I need to get some tile and some grout and some other stuff. So I'm off to Walmart. I send it all to Shelly. No
Stay
kidding.
focused here, Greg.
I'm trying.
Focused.
No, this is fun stuff.
Yes.
No kidding. I'm walking in to the entrance of Walmart, where wonderful things happen. I'm walking into Walmart and my phone blows up. I pick up my phone and it's Shelly saying, I found him, and sends me a picture of my biological father. And the minute I opened it up, I was like, yep, that's him. I see it and I was like, Daddy. And I mean, it's just like, you gotta be kidding. Literally looking up at the Walmart sign going, okay, I'm a product of a sperm donor. There's my biological father walking into Walmart.
Gotta go get some grout.
Yeah. And, here's the best part. Oh, and you're half Mexican. Like, what?
So everything you ever knew about yourself is incorrect.
Everything I've known about myself is absolutely out the window, and I'm half Mexican. Like, wait, what? How did this happen? That's Mexican, Spanish.
So get to that part.
We'll get to that part too. So I walk into Walmart. I put my phone in my pocket. I was like, you got to be kidding me. And I head to the spray paint aisle. And
I'm so glad you have such a good positive attitude.
So I come home and I'm doing some wainscoting in my half bath, and it's about 4 feet wide. And it's just going through my mind. I was like, you got to be kidding me. Everything's going wrong. I got the air hose wrapped around my foot.
This is the med student, not the doctor who was performing the assistant.
This is the med student.
Okay.
So I'm working all day. Boards are hitting me. I'm stepping in the caulk. I'm just an absolute disaster because my brain's not really there. You know, I just found out all this crazy stuff and absolutely got nothing done. And my brain was just bubbling at that point. So from that point on, things started becoming clearer and clearer. It kept on getting crazier and crazier because the more details that come out in this whole thing, the more interesting it got, the more questions you had, the more questions you had, the more questions you got answered.
So at what point did you get on the phone with CR?
Okay, that was probably maybe a week later, 2 weeks later. And again, this is me, interacting with my brother, biological brother for the first time in 47 years. Okay. I was an only child for 47 years. And out of nowhere, like a light switch.
You have a dozen siblings.
I have a brother and not just one brother. Anybody else would be happy with one brother. No, I got like 6 or 7, a couple sisters thrown in there. Like I got a whole new family. So I get him on the phone, and I'm always at Walmart or Home Depot. So I had pulled over into the Home Depot parking lot and literally sat there for 2 hours talking to CR. And just like twins have a connection or whatever, it was like...
You were talking to yourself.
It was like I was talking to myself.
Which is that whole nurture versus nature thing.
Yes, and that's a huge part of this is there's the argument about nurture and nature. There's a lot of nurture. But there is nature.
Of course.
There is stuff that is just absolutely baked into us from the start.
Genetics, yep.
And again, we'll get to that later on in the show. But I knew talking to him, I was like, this guy is related to me. I mean, just the way he presents himself, the way he organizes his conversations. It was easy. I mean, this is essentially
a stranger.
A complete stranger that I felt like I'd known my whole life.
That gives me the chills.
Yeah, I got some goosebumps myself. Literally, it was like, yep, I know this guy. And he's my, there is absolutely no doubt that he's my brother. Like, none. I know. If I got the DNA test back and it was like, oh, total mistake. No. Check it again.
Check it again.
He's related to me.
So then at what point from then until the time that you guys met in person? Because you've met in person and you've had vacations together now since then.
Yeah. I don't remember...
It was a few months.
I call him, it was a few months. I call him my special brother because not only is he special, he's special. He just decides on a whim, hey, I'm going to come up.
He lives in Florida, you live in Virginia.
Yeah, he lives in Florida, I live in Virginia. So he just decides, hey, there's a cheap flight, I'm going to come on up there. And I was like, great, okay. I'm kind of nervous, but whatever. Of course, he rolls in at midnight, 2 hours away. So then he's got to drive down to my house for 2 hours. He rolls in at 2 o'clock in the morning, and here comes, in the dark of night, here comes my brother for the first time down the driveway, and it's like,
do we hug? Right. Do we high five? What do we do?
Do we high five? And I don't even remember what we did, but it was like, okay, it's 2 o'clock in the morning. Let's go inside. And we just kind of fell into it, and naturally, easily, and we just stood in my kitchen, literally stood in my kitchen for 2 hours. I think we went to bed at 5, just talking. And it was as effortless and as you could possibly imagine. And we talked about everything. I mean, not just this. I mean, we were talking about tile and cabinets and trucks and tractors and our favorite comedians. And hey, do you leave and he's got a bit of an accent, so it kind of talks like a redneck. So he's like, do you leave the cabinet doors open? And I was like, all the time. Like, literally, I come home and think somebody ransacked my house because I leave the cabinet doors open because I was getting a box of cereal. We do things the same. So here's a funny. I'm in brushing my teeth, and he comes around the corner. I'm brushing my teeth, and he looks at me and he goes, you know, if you take the toothpaste and you put it on your toothbrush and then dab it on the end of your tongue, it won't fall off. And I'm looking at him and I'm going, you know, if you take the toothpaste and you squeeze it a little harder into the bristles, it also won't come off. And he's just like, well, yeah, you could also like tap it on the end of your tongue and push it in there.
Just brush your teeth.
And I said, yeah, or you could press it into the bristles. The sheer fact that he's a thinker like me, we're always problem solving.
Deep thoughts with Greg Martin.
Deep thoughts. We're always thinking of a better way to do things. But just the sheer fact that he would look at me and recommend a better way for me to brush my teeth and me to shoot it right back to him, I was like, yes, this.
So now, at this point, how many Dibblings has he met in person?
Okay, he's a different story. He has met more than I have. He's kind of the mayor of our group. Okay. So he's met, and he's got a lot more flexibility. So he's met a good portion of them. I have met 3. I've met 3 or 4.
But you've talked to several, and you've got a group chat that's going on
Yes, so we have a personal group chat. Because of I've got a Facebook presence, you know, my social thing. So because of you're not going to find anything. You're not going to see, oh, this is my sister or anything on my social media. You would never know.
Right.
Okay. We because of some of the Dibblings. Sounds funny, Dibblings. Because of some of the Dibblings having different stories than us. Like I'm wide open. I'm out there, but some are not. So we have to respect their privacy.
Sure.
So I'm out there, and because of social media and things like that, they can watch me, and they feel like they know me. So we don't have to talk on the phone. It's like, oh, I saw Greg. He's working on his shed. Oh, I saw Greg. He's working on his kitchen. Oh, I saw Greg. He went down to Florida. So there's a way of kind of keeping in touch, just like we all do. You know, your best friends, you don't have to talk every day. You kind of feel, you know what's going on. So that helps tremendously, and we've gotten to know each other that way. So all right, so you've met a couple, and they all live kind of all around the United States. They're spread out all over the U.S. Florida, New York.
You have Tennessee, Texas, something.
Tennessee, Texas, like they're kind of spread out.
So, without giving any names to protect the innocent, what are some of the stories that the other Dibblings had in terms of, how their parents ended up at this clinic and what their parents thought happened, or what they knew, or what this person has been told?
Okay, so every one of us has a similar but different story. Okay. Some people, some knew that their father couldn't have kids. Okay. There's a scenario.
So they knew the whole time that they had
they knew going into
donor.
it was, that they had a donor. Others, again, were receiving treatments, vitamins and medical students.
Vaginal vitamins.
Yeah, vaginal vitamins. So, and you get visuals along with all this, and it's like, again, it's like Mrs. Smith is in room 1.
Right.
Larry, come back in 10 minutes. Oh my gosh. I mean, that simple.
The biggest thing, not the biggest thing, but one of the biggest mind-blowing things of this is there is no record of this.
Yes. It's complicated.
There's no record because one of the Dibblings has contacted said university and they know nothing about this.
Yes, that's a sensitive issue, but yes, this is not out in the open. So,
because it was swept under the rug.
Yes.
Because it's illegal.
There's probably some stuff that
and immoral and unethical. But continue.
That is not quite right.
Right.
Okay. So we'll stick to the kind of fun aspects of this. So everybody had a different story. Okay. Everybody had a different motivation for going, and everybody has a very similar but slightly different story. So some were saying, we know we're using a donor, and here's kind of what we want. Here's kind of what we're looking for. I have blonde hair and blue eyes. Dad has blonde hair and blue eyes, and we have a
med student with blonde hair and blue eyes.
Yeah, so preferably we'd like, get as close as you can. Okay.
Yours was not even in the ballpark.
Yeah, I mean, well, yeah. So here's a good bit. So when you look at all our family pictures, because we have our family pictures, so you can look at I'm an only child, so you can't reference it. But when you look at some of the other Dibblings, it's like, there's Dad, blonde hair and blue eyes. There's Mom, blonde hair and blue eyes. Here's the brother, and here's the little tan baby. And it is like, I mean, like,
how nobody questioned this? I have no idea.
Oh, the stories are hilarious. So it's like, and these are multiple, different families, but they all have that. It's like whitey, little tan baby, and it's like, wow. And then you look at this one, and it's like red hair, dark hair, and it's like,
where did this come from? Literally, the milkman.
So the stories are just like our parents tell us. It's like, oh, your grandmother was really tan, or oh, your whatever used to be, loved the sun or something, and you just go, all right, yeah, I just tan more than everybody else. Okay, but looking at the family pictures, it was hilarious, and I had no reason to question this. I was like, my dad's my dad. I'm not as tall as him. Well, that's just it. I wouldn't say I look dramatically different.
Yeah.
And after knowing how this whole DNA thing works, you get more DNA and looks and stuff like you and your mom.
Twins.
Twins. I mean, they're very, very similar. So I just thought I got more of my mom's DNA. I look a lot more like my mom. And again, in hindsight, a lot of things become clear, like, Greg, you look nothing like your dad. And I was like, I
didn't look anything like, or I don't, my dad's passed, of course, but I don't look anything like my dad.
Right.
I don't think at all.
So I just had no reason to question it. He's taller.
Maybe I need to take a DNA test.
Yeah. So
I'm an only child as well, so,
Yeah. So, anyway, it was really interesting to see all the different stories that we heard collectively growing up about who we were, why we were different. Now, what CR will say, my brother, is
who you've become closest to.
Yes, and we talk every day. I mean, he's like my new best friend.
It's the best of what could have come from this situation. Yes,
absolutely, and it's awesome. And I never in a million years would have guessed that this is what I would end up with.
Sure,
because I wrote it off. I said, these are. Okay, sure, I find out I'm adopted, or I've got, a half-brother out there or half-sister. They're strangers. I didn't grow up with them. I don't know them. I don't want to know them. Their family's not my... I was like, I don't care. Like, no. In hindsight, I'm just going, this is the coolest thing ever. And so CR, he's sitting there, and the story he tells is him and his dad said at one point, he's like, son, I knew from an early age you and I don't see eye to eye.
Which is okay. I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean genetically you're not related.
Right. But it was essentially, we just don't think the same. Well, we don't think the same because we are not wired the same. We have
at all. Mm-hmm.
We have different wires, genetically different wires, genetically different ways.
But nurture nature.
Yeah, nurture nature. Genetically different wiring because of because of DNA.
Because of the fact that...
Yeah, we are just different people. And you can hang out with your family all you want, but again, everybody looked at it and said, he is different. He is different because genetically he is different. And that's
But on the flip side of that, I have friends and clients who have adopted children, and their children take on the personalities and the behaviors of their adopted parents.
Yes, yeah. And
there's so many studies about nurture versus nature and which is stronger.
It's fascinating, but you can't fight the
fact that
you were built different.
Right.
You think different because you were wired different. So again, to look at all the different dynamics, and I mean, this is like, we're going to spend 45 minutes here, talking about this. This is like a good 2-week show. I mean, this is an 8-season series.
This is an after school special. Kids.
This is like an 8-season series to cover all the different dynamics. But again, to look at how different everybody's experience was,
and not everyone has taken to it as open-mindedly as you have.
Right, and some are more accepting. Let's get into the family aspect again. I've had the conversation with my father. We talked about it, and I said, that was a weird conversation. I said, okay, Dad, I'm going to tell you a story. Let me know what you know. Let me know
if I'm on the right path.
Yeah, let me know if I'm on the right path. And, I got to the end of the story, and it was just like, well, yeah, I was one of the donors. And I was like, all right, great. So...
And then again, you guys put your head in a hole and you haven't really...
Yeah, and I need to go back. And at this point, it's wide open. There's no
secret, but it's not like you're talking about it over Thanksgiving dinner.
Yeah, there's no secret. There's no resentment. There's no anger. There's no whatever. But again, going back to everybody's different experience, I'm wide open and easygoing and all this. Well, I had a great relationship with my family. Like, I had the perfect childhood. My parents and I got along. Everything was great. Well, what if I didn't get along with my dad? Mm-hmm. What if I hated my dad? Or what if, and I'm not saying this is somebody's experience, anybody in particular, but what if I hated my parents? And then all of a sudden I found out that, I'm not related. All of a sudden it's like that bitterness and anger will manifest itself in, I'm done with you.
Right.
The only reason I've been hanging out here is because
you're my parents.
Because you're my parents and you're not my parents. So I'm out of there. So I didn't have any of that going on. But
do you think any of the other Dibblings did?
I don't. At this point, no. I don't think there was anything like that. But still, the dynamic of it was you don't know their reactions.
Right.
And
well, this is potentially extremely traumatizing for someone to find this out.
Yes.
And potentially traumatizing for the parents who maybe were planning on going to their grave with this information.
And good segue into there were people that went to the grave. My mom.
She never knew that you ended up finding this out.
My mom never knew that I knew. I think, again, she tried to tell me, but Greg didn't want to know.
Right.
So
we're playing ostrich.
And had I not brought this up, my dad would have gone to his grave with it.
Right.
And there are Dibblings that, either lost both parents that never had the chance to say, what happened? Why? Right. Where? What?
Now, I'm going to pause you for that for a second, because circle back to the fact that you tried to find the doctor who was in charge of all this and then your biological dad, because we didn't touch on that.
By nature, I'm a very inquisitive person, okay? I was probably the 10th to come along, so other Dibblings kind of cracked the egg.
Case.
Cracked the case, the egg. These numbers aren't right, but just say 3-4 years ago. And the first few that came along were extremely interested. And they were the ones that were like, okay, this doesn't make sense. What is this? And I mean, they're literally looking at it like a crime drama, crime mystery, saying, what is this? Why does this all lead back to here?
So they find him.
So they end up finding our biological father. Okay, find out that he's a med student.
Back in the 70s.
Yes.
Now, fast forward. This is an
adult. Fast forward, they the fertility doctor did not want to say anything. The fertility doctor...
Is he still working in practice?
No.
Or he's deceased?
The fertility doctor has passed on, and the med student has passed on. Our biological father
But not
has passed
initially.
on. Yeah, right. So the first few Dibblings had a chance to meet our biological father.
So you find out that some of the Dibblings have had contact with the biological father, the donor.
Yes.
And met him in person.
Yes. So...
And at this point, he's a grown man, obviously, and living where?
Many years have passed.
Okay.
Many years have passed.
40-something years.
And so a couple of the Dibblings went to go meet him and essentially got the whole story. The entire story.
Give us the abridged version.
The abridged version is, well, I was young. I was a med student. I was living in Mexico. I was working in the U.S. at a major university, and I was under the guise of helping families, with their fertility issues.
With a little cup that I would donate and get paid $50 for.
Yes. And CR had extrapolated the amount of money, and basically it was like back in the day, it was like
70s.
It was like $160.
I mean, that's bank.
Yeah. It was like $160 to help the family out and, have a little fun at the same time.
With yourself.
Yeah. So Mrs. Smith is in room 5. Come back in 10 minutes. And
also the dads, some of them were making their donation. They were essentially swirling it together.
Yeah. So it was like,
right.
Mixology. So we got the whole story. So that's what was going on. And it was under the guise of, I'm helping.
So did CR meet the biological dad?
No, unfortunately
he did not.
not.
Okay, but a couple of the other Dibblings did.
Yes. And
and when they spoke with him, was he like, I knew this was going to come back to me?
It was kind of a, well,
oh shit.
I was wondering when I was going to have this conversation.
And he was living in Mexico at the time.
He was from Mexico visiting the United States just for med school.
Right, but then when they found him...
No, living in the U.S.
Oh, he was living in the U.S.
Living in the U.S., okay. Very established, and ended up going on to be a
physician.
A physician, okay. But a lot of time had passed.
Hopefully a more ethical one at that point.
A lot of time had passed, and I'm sure a lot of Ancestry commercials,
And he was shaking in his damn boots.
Yeah. So,
oh, crap.
Now, keep in mind also privacy reasons. He has an entire family.
Sure.
Okay, he has an entire family. So we got medical history, which is all the things
that now makes sense.
And when you look at the Dibblings and you go, oh, we've got some, leg issues, and we've got some this issue, and we got that, like seeing where it comes from, because that's from his family. And so we're seeing trends. We're seeing trends like all of the Dibblings, whatever their fields are highly organized, talented. When we look at the group as a whole, you look at all the Dibblings, and I'm just going to make up, professions, but we've got a number of doctors. So it's like a doctor, architect, aerospace, engineering, finance. Okay. Me. And then there's Greg. Yeah, then there's Greg. And it's like, what's he do? We don't know. I don't know. We still don't know. So yes, I might be the black sheep, but everybody but we think the same. We're like spreadsheet people. We are very detail oriented. We talk too much. All these trends, and it's like, you just look at it and you say, we're all related, It's really, really interesting. So one of the crazier quotes was when we learned about the process, we learned what he was doing. He was trying to help families.
Or so we thought. In addition to having some fun.
Right. Create families. The quote was, well, how many times did you do this? And he's like, oh, a lot. Like a lot.
So a lot more Dibblings are coming out in the woodworks over the next few years.
Right now we know of, 12 or 13.
More is to come.
Literally, there is no number.
Right.
There could be 100.
Right.
There could be 200.
Right.
This was over the course of, say, 9 years.
Oh, shit.
9 years.
This is unethical AF.
It's pretty wild. It's pretty crazy. So there is no end game here. Right now, I'm looking at your cameraman over here. He
He could be a sibling.
He could be my brother.
I don't think he's
I
old
could come
enough.
out of the parking
You're not
lot.
old enough.
I could come out of the parking lot. Anybody I see I could be related to them. Most people, their family, that's their family. That's it. My family could be anyone.
Well, it could be any of us. So like I said, and I'll wrap with this, when Ancestry.com and all of these at-home genetic tests came out, I'm sure a lot of people were excited, and I'm sure a lot of other people were scared shitless.
Yes.
Because stories like this came out, and this isn't the first story like this, and it's not going to be the last.
And if you want to think about it in these terms, my sister and I went to the same college. We walked the same sidewalks. We had the same classes. We probably passed each other on a daily basis.
Good thing you didn't hook up with her.
What's to say we didn't go to a bar and hit it off because we are like, hey,
Right.
she's really cool. We're really similar. What's to say we didn't do that? Wow, we really get along great.
Let's stop there.
We really get along great. But that's a scenario. That's a real life scenario. Probably not going to happen, but it could. But going back to how many are out there, don't know. And if anybody's even somewhat questioning whether or not they want to, maybe you have some questions in your past.
Be prepared for what the answer is.
Maybe you don't look like your mom. Well, mom. Maybe you don't look like your family or something. Be prepared. It could be amazing. I've stumbled on an amazing journey that never in a million years would I have thought could be possible. But look into it. Pump the brakes. Think about it.
And be ready.
Be ready, because it could be a wild ride.
It could be a
wild ride.
Wild
and
ride.
Hey, we'll just leave it at this. You could be my brother or sister. We
could be.
We got room. We got room on the couch. You could be my brother.
I am so glad that you came in to do this with me. I'm so glad that you shared your story. I'm so glad that you are such an optimist and took it with such stride, because it is a pretty dramatic story. So thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for having me, Andy. It was a pleasure.
And thank you guys for listening to this episode of Uncut with Andy Diamond. We are here to inspire, educate, and just share some fun, wild, crazy stories. So until next time, bye. If you want to learn a little bit more about my friend Greg Martin here, check out his station below. I'll drop it in the show notes, The Timeless Home, where you can see what him and Shelly have done together in terms of home renovations and construction. And then just keep following along so that you can hear some more fun, inspiring, and educational journeys at Uncut with Andy Diamond.